In the cell stood an old man in a patched-up vest and a young one in torn clothes with a bruised face. Their faces were calm and the clothing was covered with a thick layer of frost. "They're alive," the Major asked in amazement. "How did they survive here for 2 days?" "We are alive, sir," said Father Arseny. All looked at each other in amazement. "Search them." "Come out," shouted one of the supervisors. Father Arseny and Alexei walked out of the cell. The supervisor removed their gloves and started frisking them. The doctor also removed a glove, put it under Father Arseny's and then Alexei's clothing, and to nobody in particular said, "Amazing, how could they have survived? It's true, though, they're warm." The doctor walked into the cell, looked around it and asked, "What kept you warm?" "Our faith in God and prayer," Father Arseny answered. "They are simply fanatics. Send them back to the barracks right away," said one of the supervisors in an irritated voice. As he was walking away, Alexei heard somebody say, "It's amazing, in this cold they should have lived no more than 4 or 5 hours. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable considering that it is minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit out. You supervisors sure got lucky. There could have been some unpleasantness in store for you." The barracks met them as if they had risen from the dead. Everyone asked, "What saved you?" They both answered, "God saved us." Ivan the Brown was transferred to another barracks within days. A week later he was killed by a falling rock. He died in terrible pain. It was rumoured that his own friends had helped the rock fall. Alexei became a new man, as if reborn. He followed Father Arseny whenever he was able to, and asked everyone he could about God and about Orthodox services. The fair one. The previous supervisor had been replaced. In his place, a new one was sent who, because of his strict demands, the camp rules be followed, and because of his fair approach to the prisoners, was nicknamed the Fair One. This new supervisor was indifferent to Father Arseny. If he found something not quite to his liking, he would say mockingly, "Father, it is important to perform the services right." Then he would leave and come back in an hour to see if Father Arseny had done the work to his satisfaction. In the course of the summer, something most unusual happened to the Fair One. One day he went to check the barracks and the whole territory around him. Meanwhile, Father Arseny was sweeping the paths between the barracks. He saw that when the supervisor finished his tour of the barracks, he stopped, took something out of his pocket, opened his wallet, looked at something, put it back, and kept on walking. While sweeping the paths, Father Arseny came to the place where the supervisor had stopped and saw on the ground a little red book. He picked it up and saw that it was the Fair One's Communist Party card. Father Arseny picked up the card, put it in his pocket, and after he had finished sweeping the paths, went to sweep the barracks. While he was doing this, he looked every so often through the window to see if the supervisor was coming. In about 2 hours, he saw the Fair One running in a panic. Father Arseny walked out of the barracks and went to meet him. Losing your party card, especially in the camp at that time, meant death, and the Fair One knew it perfectly well. He ran along the barrack paths, his face dark with terror. He looked right and left, but people had already been walking along there. Father Arseny came to him and said, "Comrade, please allow me to talk to you." The face of the supervisor clouded with anger, and he shouted, "Out of my way, you silly priest," and wanted to hit him. Father Arseny silently gave him the party card and turned back to the barracks. The supervisor snatched the card and shouted, "Stop!" And drawing near, he asked, "Who saw you?" "Nobody saw me, comrade supervisor. I found this on the path some 2 hours ago." The Fair One turned around and walked away. Nothing seemed any different, but the supervisor became more and more demanding of Father Arseny. People thought that perhaps he had decided to rid himself of Father Arseny as a dangerous witness. In camp, such things happened. A supervisor would kill a prisoner and then say, "He attacked me," and he would even be praised by the administration. There were many ways to get rid of a prisoner, all of them without punishment. O Mother of God, do not abandon them. This story is based on Father Arseny himself, retold to his closest spiritual children. I was one of them. The reports I heard when I met Evsenkov, Sazikov, and Alexei, the student who was by then already out of the camp, helped me to describe what follows. These people were present when Father Arseny physically died in the barracks, and they witnessed how he came back to life. When I finished writing all this, I felt I had to show the manuscript to Father Arseny. He read it. It was silent for a long time, and when he heard my question, was it not really so, he answered, I was granted great mercy by the Lord and by the Mother of God, who showed me the most sacred and magnificent treasure, that of the human soul, filled with faith, love and kindness. They showed me that faith will never die on earth. Many people carry it within them, some with ardour, others with a trembling respect. Others again just carry a spark, and it is essential for them that a good priest help them as a pastor to turn the spark into an unquenchable flame of faith. The Lord showed me that the people who carry the faith, and especially the shepherds of human souls, must help fight for each person to the end of their own strength until their last breath. The basis of the fight for a soul is love, kindness, and helping your neighbour, help given not for one's own sake, but for the sake of one's brother. People judge faith, and judge even Jesus Christ himself, based on the behaviour of others. It is also written, by your words you will be saved, and by your words you will be condemned, Matthew 12:37, and bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ, Galatians 6:2. What happened to me was for me an enormous lesson and an admonition that put me back in my place. Having lived in camps for so long and having been saved so many times by the mercy of God, I began to believe that I was strong in faith. When I died, the Lord and the Mother of God showed me that I am not worthy even to touch the clothes of many of those who are also in camps. I have much to learn from them. The Lord humbled me, put me in my place, the place where I should have been all along. He showed me my great unworthiness and granted me time to improve myself, to correct my mistakes and errors. But have I? O Lord, help me. Having said this, Father Arseny took my manuscript and returned it to me in a few days. Rereading it, I saw that he had changed a few words and added others. The manuscript he gave back to me is what is before you now. Returning the manuscript to me, Father Arseny said, please, while I am alive, do not show this to anybody. When I die, let people read it. The exhausting hot summer with its clouds of mosquitoes had been replaced by a rainy, humid and cold autumn. The ground was sometimes frozen and sometimes streaming with rivers of melted mud. It was damp and cold in the barracks, which made life particularly difficult. The clothing of the prisoners could never dry out. Their feet were constantly wet and covered with blisters. A flu epidemic began. Every day, 3 to 5 people died. It was now Father Arseny's turn. He could not rise from his bunk. His temperature was 104 degrees. He had chills. He was coughing. He was congested. His heart refused to function. In the special camp, during such epidemics of flu, patients were not even put in the hospital. Only if your skull was cracked or if your leg or arm was cut off or broken were you taken to the hospital. Flu had to be dealt with within the barracks. The rule of the camp was, if you can stand, you work. If you can't stand, then prove you are not faking an illness. If you prove it, they will take care of you, if the authorities approve. In the camp, there is a plan as to how much work must be done by each prisoner. If he is made to do more work than expected, the authorities are remunerated. Of course, the prisoner himself did not even know it, but his work brought money to somebody. The authorities exist to keep to their plan, so there is no time for soft-heartedness. When a prisoner is sick or has a high fever, he has to ask permission to go to the infirmary. There they will take his temperature. If it is below 103 degrees, he is sent back to work. Should he argue, they will send him to the punishment cell, and on top of it, the supervisor will hit him in the face to remind him of his responsibilities. If the fever is higher than 103 degrees, he may stay in the barracks in bed, but he must appear every day in the infirmary. If he becomes unconscious in the barracks, a medic will come to check his temperature and throw some medicine onto his bunk. Then he can stay in bed, but take care he doesn't remain there after his temperature drops below 102 degrees. So this was the general rule. If you can walk, walk to work. Don't use the camp doctors. They are usually hired by the government and know their job. It doesn't take much for them to shout, "You're faking," off to work. "If you don't, I'll send you to the punishment cell." It is true that many of the prisoners had been doctors before they were arrested, but those were never allowed to practice in camp. They had to do physical work like anybody else, and particularly hard work at that. On the third day after Father Arseny became ill, one of the doctors among the prisoners looked him over and called a lung specialist to discuss the case. They called Avsenkov over and told him the patient has pneumonia, complete exhaustion, a serious vitamin deficiency, and his heart is worn out. It looks very bad. We do not think he can last more than 2 days. We would need medication, oxygen, care. But under these circumstances, there is nothing we can do. Father Arseny was almost an old man. He had lived in this camp for a number of years, and over that time many people in the barracks had died and had been replaced by new ones. Only perhaps 12 people were such veterans as he was. Everybody looked at these old-timers with surprise. How and why were these patriarchs still alive? A medic was called in. He looked at Father Arseny from a distance of 2 meters, tossed him aspirin onto his bunk, gave Avsenkov a thermometer to check his temperature, saw that it was over 105 degrees, and saying, "He has the flu," he left. Father Arseny grew steadily worse. His friends could see that it was the end, that his time had come. They sent a man to the hospital to try to get help. His friends from among the criminals tried to soften up the supervisors. They managed to obtain some mustard powder for a plaster and some raspberry jam. They brought anything they could. A messenger managed to get into the hospital with great difficulty, and with the help of some true friends, he begged for help, for medicine, and explained what was going on with Father Arseny. The doctor listened and asked the messenger, "How old is the Zek, and how long has he been in this camp?" The messenger answered that the patient was 49 years old and had been in the camp for 3 years now. The doctor answered, "Do you think that a special camp is a sanatorium, and the Zeks in it should live until they are 100 years old? Your patient has beaten the odds, and it is time for him to go. He has lived long enough. There is no medicine for him. It is needed for the army." The fever rose higher and higher. Father Arseny lost consciousness more and more often. Avsenkov tried to give him aspirin with raspberry jam to drink. Sazikov put a rag with mustard powder on his chest and back. The doctors among the prisoners helped as much as only they could the minute they returned from their labour, but Father Arseny grew worse and worse. At times he was nearly motionless. He was dying. Death is a common occurrence in camp. Everyone is used to it, but in this case everyone felt it in a special way. From one end of the barracks to the other you could hear, "Father Arseny is dying, Pyotr Andreyevich is dying." For each one of them he had done something good, something kind. A most unusual man was dying. This was something the politicals as well as the criminals understood. Father Arseny prayed on and felt the support and help of his friends. Gradually he grew silent. "He is going," said someone. Father Arseny felt also that he was dying. The barracks, Sazikov, Avsenkov, Alexei, the doctor, Boris Petrovich, he could see them no longer. Everything had disappeared, had faded away. After some time, Father Arseny felt an unusual lightness grip him and heard an absolute silence surrounding him. He grew calm, his difficulty in breathing, the mucus that had blocked his throat, the fever that had been burning his body, his weakness and helplessness all disappeared. He felt healthy and energetic. Now Father Arseny stood by his own bunk, and on it he saw a thin, exhausted, unshaven, almost white-haired man with pinched lips and half-open eyes. Near the man he could see Avsenkov, Sazikov, Alexei, and a few more of the prisoners whom he, Father Arseny, especially knew and loved. Father Arseny looked attentively at the man on the bunk and suddenly realized with amazement that the man on the bunk was himself. His friends, who were gathered near his bunk, the enormous barracks with its numerous population, the whole vast camp. Father Arseny was suddenly seeing with absolute clarity. He understood that just now he could see not only their physical appearances, but their souls. Through the silence that was in him, he saw the movements of the prisoners, and although he could not hear them, he could somehow understand clearly what they were saying and thinking. With awe he realized that he could see the state of each of their souls, but he knew that he was no longer with them in this world. An invisible line separated him from this world, and he was unable to cross it. Now Sazikov brought a cup to his lips and tried to pour something into his mouth, but could not. The water spilled over his face. Avsenkov and Alexei were talking about something with a few of the others. Father Arseny stood at the foot of his own body, looking at himself and at the other people as though he were an outsider, and suddenly he understood that his soul had left his body, and he, the priest Arseny, was physically dead. Father Arseny turned around in wonder. The barracks was disappearing into darkness, but somewhere in the distance there was a blinding light. Recollecting himself, Father Arseny started to pray and immediately was at peace. He understood that there was somewhere he had to go. He started walking towards the blinding light, but having made a few steps, he turned back into the barracks and went up to his bunk, looking at Alexei, Alexander Pavlovich, Ivanov, Sazikov, Avsenkov, and the many, many others with whom he had shared the thorny path of suffering. He understood that he could not leave these people. He could not leave them. He kneeled and began to pray, begging God not to leave Alexei, Avsenkov, Alexander, Fyodor, Sazikov, and all the others with whom he had lived in this camp. O Lord, O my Lord, do not leave them, help them, and save them, he prayed, and especially he asked for the intercession of the Mother of God, begging her in her mercy not to abandon the prisoners of the special camp. As he prayed, he cried, begging God, the Mother of God, and all the saints to have mercy on them all. But his prayer was wordless. And now the barracks and the entire camp appeared before his spiritual eyes in a very different way. He saw the whole camp with all its prisoners and its prison guards as if from inside. Each person carried within himself a soul which was now distinctly visible to Father Arseny. The souls of some were afire with faith which kindled the people around them. The souls of others like Sazikov and Avsenkov burned with a smaller but ever-growing flame. Others had only small sparks of faith and only needed the arrival of a shepherd to fan these sparks into real flame. There were also people whose souls were dark and sad without even the least a spark of light. Now looking into the souls of the people which God had allowed him to see, Father Arseny was extremely moved. O Lord, I lived among these people and did not even notice them, how much beauty they carry within them. So many are true ascetics in the faith. Although they are surrounded by such spiritual darkness and unbearable human suffering, they do not only save themselves, but give their life and their love to the people around them, helping others by word and by deed. Lord, where was I? I was blinded by pride and mistook my own small deeds for something grand. Father Arseny saw that the light of faith burned not only in the prisoners but also in some of the guards and administrators who, within the limits of what they could do, performed good deeds. For them this was extremely difficult because it was very dangerous. What is all this for? Flew through the mind of Father Arseny. What is it all for? He stood and observed the spiritual world of the people, the same people with whom he had lived, talked, or had only just seen. How surprisingly varied and spiritually beautiful this world appeared before him. People who in the crowd of others had seemed to Father Arseny to be spiritually empty and depersonalized, he now saw anew. He saw that they carried so much faith, so much inexhaustible love for others, did so much good and bore their cross without complaint. And he, Father Arseny, living among them, he, the priest and hieromonk Arseny, had not seen them, had not noticed them, had not connected with them. O Lord, where was I? Pardon me and have mercy on me. I only saw myself. I was deluded. I did not have enough faith in people. Bowing down, Father Arseny prayed for a long time. When he stood up, he saw that he still was in the camp, but he no longer had his new perception of it. The bunks and the barracks had disappeared. Father Arseny stood at the gate of the camp. The sharp beam of the searchlights was sweeping the region, and by the gate stood a sentry. It was night. The camp was asleep.